Jeremy Olam tells the story of his family's visit to a water park and their experience on the lazy river ride on a family-sized tube. It was not until they reached the exit point that the tremendous power of this lazy river became evident. As his youngest son jumped off the tube into the water, he was immediately swept off his feet. Jeremy's oldest son and then his wife tried to help, but the powerful currents proved too much. Jeremy set his own feet firmly in the bottom of the river and struggled to rescue his family. Finally, after a few frightening moments, all were able to get to shore, shocked by just how powerful the currents had proven. Jeremy likens that experience to the church living amidst the powerful, idolatrous currents of modern Western culture. Like the lazy river, these cultural currents are invisible and yet forceful and relentless as they carry us with them. One safeguard against our being carried away by these idolatrous currents is to understand the Bible as one story and allow it to shape our lives. As Leslie Newbigin puts it, if this biblical story is not the one that really controls our thinking, and I would add our lives, then inevitably we shall be swept into the story that the world tells about itself. We shall become increasingly indistinguishable from the pagan world of which we are a part. Our missional role is to be the new humanity and to embody God's creational purposes for human life. And so we must not be conformed to the world. Paul has in mind, with this language, conformity to human culture as it has been shaped by the idolatry of the present evil age. Only by seeing the Bible as one story and rehearsing it among our congregations can we be equipped to resist the spirits that shape our culture. N.T. Wright speaks here of subversion. We are to tell this biblical story as clearly as possible and allow it to subvert other ways of telling the story of the world, he says. Leslie Newbigin employs the notion of a missionary encounter in our culture. There are two quite different stories told as the real story of the world, the humanist story and the story that is told in the Bible. A missionary encounter is a clash of these two foundational and comprehensive stories. It occurs when the church indwells the all-embracing claims of the biblical story, while living amidst the equally comprehensive and competing claims of the dominant cultural narrative. Richard Bauckham makes the same point with the language of resistance. He argues that the only way the church can resist being co-opted into the very powerful narrative of economic globalization and individualistic consumerism is by countering that narrative with the biblical one. The following illustrations, used by Brian Berger in his new members class, makes this point vividly. He draws a circle on the board and then asks prospective members what Americans pursue as the ultimate goal of human life. What does it mean to win and succeed in American culture? Almost immediately, he gets some version of the answer that indicates material prosperity or financial success. Why do we want money? For financial security and retirement, for nice vacations, for newer technology, for good entertainment, for toys like boats and cottages, etc. What is shaping this vision? Movies, ads, influential people, social media, news, popular culture. Where does this notion of success come from? We all live in the same culture with the same worldview, customs, and patterns. This worldview and way of life that we inhabit is the product of a long historical story that has shaped our culture. He represents this story with a long arrow. He then asks what we believe as Christians. The class typically offers various answers like God is triune, Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, we are saved by faith in Jesus, we are to love one another, seek justice, and so on. He writes each of these on the board, circling them and giving them the appearance of a ping pong ball. Finally, he graphically illustrates the problem. These distinct doctrinal truths and moral demands, while very true, when uprooted from the biblical story, are like ping pong balls that are thrown into the swift and powerful current of the Western story. They have little power to withstand the currents that move us toward the goals of human life defined by our culture. Christians are carried along toward the same way of life as their unbelieving neighbors. I have put it this way, rather provocatively. The narrative unity of Scripture is no minor matter. A fragmented Bible may actually produce theologically orthodox, morally upright, warmly pious idol worshippers. What is needed is a grand story that offers a more compelling alternative vision of what success or winning really looks like, what it means to be truly human. And only the Bible offers such a story. An Australian sociologist, who makes no claim to be a Christian, asks why the church in the West is in serious decline. He answers, "The waning of Christianity as practiced in the West is easy to explain. The Christian churches have comprehensively failed in their one central task, to retell their foundation story in a way that might speak to the times. We in the church must return to this one central task of faithfully retelling the biblical story as the true story of our world, to speak to all the issues of our day. We need to rehearse this story in our preaching and our teaching, discipleship, sacraments, and worship, the whole life and ministry of the local congregation, so that the people of God may be equipped as faithful disciples to stand firm in the gospel. Our lives will be shaped by some grand story. The only question is, which one?